And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Now, in this fifth and final segment, we are going to be doing a coaching update as well as a injury update. And hold on just one second. Just checking to make sure I don't get another email. And all right, so let's go with the injury first because I feel like that's a little bit more important. So the injury that I'm referring to is, I'm sure you Eagles fans already know, is the injury regarding Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts, I mentioned this before when I was doing the reviews of the review of the Eagles game, and the Jalen Hurts, he ended up getting hurt after a play. I forgot exactly when it was, but I do know he ended up getting hurt. He ended up hurting his knee, and he still was able to finish the game, but it didn't really look like he was able to do much other than hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley. Granted, I mean, do you really have to do much when you're on that team aside from hand the ball to Saquon with how he's been playing? I don't think so. Maybe if he wasn't injured, that would have still been the game plan. Who knows? But I will say, though, that if this injury is really major, this could affect the Eagles in the championship round. I mean, I tend to make fun of Hurts for doing, less than what I expect him to do, but I will say I have way more respect for Jalen Hurts at quarterback than I do with Dak Prescott. I mean, with what Jalen Hurts was able to do with Philly in that Super Bowl and in that season in general, it's like I got to give respect to this man for doing what he did. And unlike Dak Prescott, he's actually looked competent. Now, I will say that this season has been very meh for Jalen Hurts. But again, you give up your all-star caliber role and your superstar caliber role that he did have, the Superman role, you give that up for winning. You would definitely give that up for winning, especially in a sport like this. And when you have somebody like Saquon Barkley, do you really got to do anything other than hand the ball off to him? Manzano in the chat, he said, I was completely wrong. I thought the game was going to be closer than it actually was. Notre Dame put up a fight in the second half and made it interesting, but most of the game was a blowout. Exactly. Now, I'm just veering off a little bit. Yeah, most of this game was just a complete and utter blowout, and there was really no memorable moment. I was very disappointed in Notre Dame and how they played in that one. I was also very disappointed with the play calling deciding to take a field goal instead of going for it in the situation that you're in. I really, really, really do not like the fact that they played man coverage against such a highly touted and amazing offense that Ohio State is. I just completely disagree with the fact that they ran man. I just do not get that. I understand he won a Super Bowl, but do you think Jalen Hurts did not win a Super Bowl? He played in the Super Bowl. Very, very big difference there. But he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. So that's really what I was alluding to. But do you think Jalen Hurts is a quarterback that is good getting you to a championship game or Super Bowl, but it's not going to constantly win you one? Good question. I do think that Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I think that he's good enough to get this. Wait a minute. I'm trying to rephrase the sentence. You know what? I'm going to back off on that. I think Jalen Hurts, he's a good quarterback. I'm not going to say that he is the only reason why this Eagles team and why previous Eagles teams were able to make it to the Super Bowl and were able to do a lot of things in that Super Bowl, or were able to do a lot of things in the postseason. Because I think that the Eagles team is a very good, well-rounded team with a good quarterback, a good running back, and good wide receivers, and a great offensive line, as well as a very solid defense. Like, they have everything that you need to win a championship. And it's usually all down to whether or not Jalen Hurts plays the way that he needs to play. Do I think he can do it? Do I think he can win a championship game? He's shown that he can. He's definitely shown that he can. But until the team steps up with him, can't really say that all that much. I hope it feels like I'm not insulting Jalen Hurts by saying that he's a quarterback that's gonna get you there, but it's not gonna get you over the hump. That is a little bit insulting. Again, I am a Giants fan, so it's not like I really care, and I hope that you're right, that he's a quarterback that is not going to get you over the hump. But from what I've seen in in the playoffs, again, he did have that very, very unimpressive playoff performance last year against Tampa Bay. But from what I've seen in the playoffs from Jalen Hurts, he's been pretty solid. And really, the quarterback that is not going to get you over the hump is Dak Prescott, plain and simple. But I feel like, with the right squad, Jalen Hurts, he could probably win this year. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a complete rematch of the Chiefs going up against the Eagles, but this time the Eagles get the upper hand because they have an amazing weapon like Saquon. Like, they don't have to completely rely on Jalen Hurts for something like that. And while that may or may not prove your point as a quarterback that is going to get you over the hump, it doesn't matter. Like, you do what you got to do to win. We all know Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback that can get you over the hump, but he's not playing like it, is he? He's doing it for the win. Now, as a Giants fan, this is a little bit off topic. Would you rather draft Sanders or Ward at number 3? Well, for one, we are not going to get either of those guys at number 3. We're getting none of them because the first 2 picks are going to be quarterback picks. And that is that. I have accepted that, and we are definitely not going to get either or. And if I was to pick between either or, however, I would love to get Cam Ward. Absolutely love getting Cam Ward. But seeing as how we do not have the number 1 pick in the draft anymore, we couldn't do that. And there was a chance we could have gotten, the second. But since we're at 3rd, both of the teams above us are going to be looking for a new quarterback. So we're not getting any of them. Not getting any of them. But if your coach has to take the ball out of the... Again, this is just... We're veering off a little bit, but I can do that now. If your coach has to take the ball out of your hands, doesn't that mean he doesn't trust you with the game? No, because in this instance right here, if let's say the Eagles decide to just give the ball to Saquon as opposed to letting Jalen Hurts throw the ball, they are playing to their absolute best of strengths. Like, Saquon and that offensive line is almost unstoppable. When Saquon has the amount of room that he has to work with, he's going to put the ball in the end zone a lot of the times. And taking the ball away from Jalen Hurts' hands is just a sacrifice because that's what you need to do to win. That's what you got to do to win. When you have a talent like Saquon, you got to use it. You have to. You can't, just force your quarterback to play hero ball. You can't always do that. And while I do, I do see the point, how, okay, he's not letting Jalen Hurts do what Jalen Hurts can do. But again, you gotta think of, a situation that's best to win. And with the way that Saquon is playing, why don't you give him the ball? Why don't you give him the ball? Now, if he wasn't playing like this, then there is a good chance that Jalen Hurts, with how the offense has been all year with Jalen Hurts, I don't think it's entirely his fault that the offense is lackluster. I think it has something to do with the coaching, because the second they got rid of their offensive coordinator, when they made it to the Super Bowl, they've been very, very weak offensively. I don't think it has anything to do with the players or Jalen Hurts. I think it has something to do with the coaching. I genuinely think it has something to do with the coaching, but that's just me. And speaking of coaching, I do want to give a little bit of an update on the coaching carousel and what's going on right now. So so we already talked about Jalen Hurts and that stuff, but the Bears are going to hire Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson as their new head coach. Obviously, this happens after the Lions end up completely disappointing everybody and losing in the NFC divisional round where they preemptively should have. And so with that move, landing Johnson on Monday afternoon, it completely took him off the table. So now the Jets, the Jaguars, the Saints, Raiders, and Cowboys are still in the interview process and looking for a new head coach. So let's see. Also, another major injury to be concerned about when going into this NFC championship game is that the Commanders' starting guard, Sam Cosmi, is out with a torn ACL, and he suffered this torn ACL after the Lions game. So again, could end up being a detriment to Washington, but we'll see how that goes. So again, Bears, they hired offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, and let me just go ahead and look through these. Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka is going to get a second interview with the Saints. I believe today he's going to get his second interview. The Cowboys, they spoke to offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer for the head coaching job, as I alluded to before. The Jets are hoping to end Monday with Aaron Glenn as their new head coach. That's another update on the coaching carousel. Again, we'll see how that goes. Not entirely sure. And Robert Saleh is interviewing with the Jaguars one more time. And that's going to be very interesting. Robert Saleh on the Jags. I don't think he's going to make the Jags a very competent team, but we'll see how that goes. The Cowboys, they also interviewed Leslie Frazier, who was the Bills' defensive coordinator for years, and he spent last season as an assistant with the Seahawks. The Colts hired Lou Anarumo, as the next defensive coordinator for their team. The Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn is going to get a second interview with the Jets. Let's see, what else? And yeah, those are all the updates that I have with the coaches and the situations going on. So, I'll probably go a little bit more in depth if I have more time to do that in future segments, but that's just wanted to update you guys on what's going on in today's NFL. But that's all that I have. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. Really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether it's a hot take, whether it's a burning question, something that you're dying to share. We're all ears. If you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box and you can send in your comments and or donations. That way, if Super Chat's not your thing, you can always use the link displayed below the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That's all that I have for today on this segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to